which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk take the roll, please.
Mayor Rowe?
Here.
District 1 Morset?
Here.
District 2 O'Connell is excused. 3 Rademacher?
Here.
4 Wyland?
Here.
5 O'Malley?
Here.
6 Burchell?
Here. At this point in our agenda, we take comments and suggestions from citizens present on any subject not on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this point? Anyone? I'll ask one more time. Hearing none, let's go to the consent agenda items, and Madam Clerk will verbalize all of those for us.
To approve the public hearing, regular meeting minutes, and closed session minutes of July 16th, 2007. To approve claims for payment in the amount of $913,131.80. A detailed description is available in the clerk's office on request. To approve the issuance of 3 regular operators licenses for the period August 7th, 2007 through June 30th, 2009. Additional information is available in the clerk's office on request. To approve the request of Ragnar Relay Race to hold the Leg 22 Runner Exchange site in Lakefront Park on August 25th, 2007 between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. To place on file the quarterly reports of the city clerk, library director, and parks department, and the North Hudson Community Access Board minutes of July 24th, 2007. That is all.
For approval.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Morset?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Wyland?
Yes.
Burchell?
Yes.
Rademacher?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Let's go down to Plan Commission. Resolution 1707, discontinuance of the unimproved right-of-way of Barcel Street west of Union Pacific Railroad, Terry Walker, 1321 8th Street, to set the hearing at 9/17/07. Recommendation from Plan Commission is for approval. We need,
Need to
Just set it for a hearing.
yeah.
Okay, well then just move to set the hearing for September 17th, 6:55 PM. Second motion.
Any discussion or comments? I see Mr. Walker's here. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Number 2, final development plans for Rivercrest Elementary School, 535 County Trunk F, School District of Hudson. Recommendation from finance is for approval. I think that we all have in our packets the layout of the school. If there's any questions of our engineer, school's engineer, any questions?
Move for approval of the plans subsequent to amendment per the city engineer's recommendations.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go down to Finance Committee, application of Badger Hospitality Incorporated for reserve Class B liquor, Class B beer, Green Mill Restaurant, 2410 Gateway Court. This is a reserve license, and it is a $10,000 fee. Recommendation from Finance is to approve that application transfer.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
Could we make the motion contingent upon transfer of the sale of the property
Absolutely.
and subsequent surrender of the
A
existing
surrender of
license?
the old, yeah.
Yep.
That okay with the seconder?
Of course.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to review bids, determine financing, and consider awarding contract for the Crestview Drive and Carmichael Road Triple Turn Lane Project, finally. Betty has determined where the monies are coming for. A recommendation from Finance is to go ahead awarding that contract. And I need a motion before discussion.
Move to award the contract of to Pember Companies, Inc. in the amount of $232,402.45 for the Triple F Turn Lane project.
Second.
Discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Review bids, determine financing, and consider awarding contract for Cooley Road and 11th Street intersection improvements project.
Move to approve Zappa Brothers, 94-9-11-60.
Second.
Second. This is another one that's much needed, and we did add to that a turn lane to the east, which was better to put it in initially because it would cost a lot more money waiting and determining the need for that later on.
Mr.
Good.
Mayor? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I thought you were through.
No, I just thought that was a good suggestion from Tom and also from the Safety Committee.
We did receive a memo from Chuck at the end of the week regarding the driveway into the adjacent property, and that might possibly add some expense. Is Chuck here right now? Is there anything you want to address on that issue, Chuck, before we vote on this?
Well, I just, concrete will be crossing the driveway.
Yeah. Aren't you going to pour it half and half? And
Yeah, the plan was just to pour it and then keep off it for 5 days like we're doing 9 Aldrich. But they've expressed some concerns about that, and so
I
during
think
the
you were gonna-
pre-construction meeting, we want to
Weren't you going to work that out with
explore
Skip?
ways to determine, some mutually agreeable, resolution to that.
So you think the dollar figure we're talking about now is the final dollar figure?
Well, we're hopeful we can come to some sort of agreement. There might be a little more cost incurred if we have to go to, say, a half and half pour or something like that, but not a significant
significant.
expense.
Okay. Thank you.
Change will be minimal, is what you're saying, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Review bids and consider awarding the contract for tree and stump removal services. We wanted to hold that over, Tom Zulli, until you got here. Maybe you can come up to the podium and give us your best shot on option 1 or option 2.
Sure. We had 2 different options this year. First option was to have the private trees and the public trees get a price for a combined price. The option 2 was just to have the city trees alone and let the private people negotiate their own service. St. Croix Tree Service said they would cut the public trees down for $200 per tree, and the private trees for $200. And just a note, those are diseased trees. If you had a dead maple or willow or something in your backyard, this is diseased elm trees. I want to make that clear.
Okay.
Stump removal was very close, 45 for St. Croix, and Pinnacle was 48. The hourly trimming and disposal rate, there's a little bit of discrepancy there, but difference, I should say, but 5 or 6 years ago, the city purchased a bucket truck, and prior to that, we contracted the tree service to help us put up Christmas decorations, change light bulbs in the city street lights, various trimming, tree trimming and things like that. But since we purchased the bucket truck 5 or 6 years ago, that we normally do just about all of that, unless there was a specific tree that was close to power lines or something, or close to a house or something that we didn't feel comfortable with. So I don't think the tree trimming part of it is a big factor, because we just don't do it very often anymore. Option number 2, St. Croix Tree would cut the private trees down for $135, and
Public trees.
I'm sorry, public trees for $135, and the Pinnacle Tree Service would be $195. Just maybe a little information. Years past, 2003, we had I marked 576 trees. 2004, I marked 457. 2005, 291. 2006, I marked 719 trees. If we go depending on what we go with. If we went with the option number 1 with St. Croix Tree Service, I think we could have about 50 trees cut down with our budget, with our current budget. If we go with option 2, I think it'd work out that we could cut 70 trees down with the current budget.
So Tom, you're talking about diseased trees.
Disease elm trees.
So we have over 700 diseased trees yet? Is that what you're saying?
Last year, I marked 719 trees that were diseased in the city.
But those have already been cut.
Yes. This year, just by the, I don't see that it's going to be a big year this year. You know, I've marked maybe 50 already, but when the contract, this issue came up, I kind of stopped marking them. But just looking around town, I don't see a big, large amount of trees this year.
Based on your vast experience and as a tree surgeon, I'll call you, which one would you recommend?
Well, I want to go for the best money or value for a dollar and cut the most trees down. I would go
Right.
with option number 2 with St. Croix Tree Service.
Tom, do you have any idea how many private trees are diseased? Would be roughly the same?
I can give you, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
If I took the last 2 years, average from 2005 and 2006, I marked 1,007 trees. And in 2005, there was 224 city trees. And in 2006, that was 198 trees. So that, in 2 years, it totaled 422 trees. If we go on the private side, 2005, I marked 67 private trees, and in 2006, 494 trees. So that was 561 trees for
So
2
it's-
years.
It's really spreading on that side. On the private
Well, I
side.
would say over the 2 years, you had 422 one year for the city and for 2 years, and then the private was 561. So I'd say it's about a 60-40 split, more on the private side.
Tom, didn't we pick up a lot of diseased trees out by the new hospital when we annexed some of that property? Didn't we pick up like 100 trees there that were diseased?
Yeah, and, the guy that owned the property,
George Hull,
yeah, he got a lot of them too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think some of these annexations have added to the specific problem that we have on public property.
But some of the bad areas, along Mayor Road, River Road, that's been all cleaned up.
Yeah.
Last year, we had, someone up in the Beaneman Farm area, there's a pond area, wild land area, someone called on that, and that was like 40 of our trees and 45 private trees up in that area, so.
What would St. Croix Tree Service, if we go with option 2, what are they gonna charge the public to take down?
That would be negotiated between them and the homeowner.
Any idea of what the ballpark figure is?
I don't, they didn't
Where
express.
they are, front yard, backyard,
Well,
yeah.
That's what brought up the whole discussion, or why they wanted to change the contract or whatever, because it costs, they don't really have a big issue with the city trees, because they can go down the street, put their piece of equipment in front of the boulevard tree, cut it down, haul it away, and they're out of there relatively fast. But it's a person has a tree in the backyard with a wooden fence, they have to drive across the sidewalk, they break the sidewalk, they break the fence.
Ruin the yard.
Ruin the yard, and then they have to, that's where their issue is. But that would be negotiated. I mean, if there's a tree that's relatively easier to get at, I'm sure that, that's something you'd
There
negotiate
was a
with.
large tree on Vine Street, happened about a month ago, and I called Tom out because it had fallen onto Vine Street. And I think that particular tree was probably $895. Large.
You got charged $135 because it was public or private, or,
Well, if it had been on the boulevard,
oh,
okay,
this was in some.
and diseased, then we would
non-diseased.
go by the appropriate bid.
Tom, can I clarify for me and maybe the TV audience, so when you go and mark a tree in their yard, in the backyard, that's private.
Yep.
Yes,
And they're gonna negotiate between $500 and $1,000, right? $500 to $1,000. Depending
Possibly.
on how the.
Yeah.
The size of the tree,
situation.
location, whatever.
But if we went with option one, they'll get charged a flat fee of $200.
That's correct.
You see, the whole reason I thought we'd do this is to give our citizens a break.
Well, that's what I mentioned in the finance committee meeting.
Since the difference between the city trees that can be cut down is, as Tom said, 50 to 70, there's a difference of 20 trees with our public funds. And we've got an average of hundreds of private trees every year. I think that's a large enough number. I'm going to move for option number one, because I don't know how many of our citizens can pay between $500 and $1,000 per tree. And like you, I've seen people get those bills. If we have an ability here, by giving up 20 trees, to guarantee our citizens a $200 charge, I think we ought to do it.
And they're the ones that pay the bill ultimately.
Yeah.
Well,
Meaning here.
Randy seconded it, but I would like just to say that, we really need to make this known. Maybe Randy Hanson, if you could somehow mention that in your newspaper article that, and put it on the website that, because I think we obviously have a huge problem here. We need to let people know, hey, get your trees cut for $200, get them out, and now's the time to do it.
This is a disease trees.
Diseased elms only.
Diseased
That's-
elm trees,
Are
correct.
they notified, Tom, when they have a diseased tree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
I
they
send
were.
them a notice, I mark it. If they're not home, I leave a little tag in the door, and then they get notified.
How long do they have to get them down?
3 weeks, 20 days, 21 days, excuse me.
Typically, though, you could also take, since we have the bucket, and we have the wood chipper, we could take the smaller boulevard trees in-house, correct?
I agree with the discussion that the biggest problem is diseased trees on private property, and if we can give the citizens and our constituents a break, that's what we ought to consider.
I had one other question. If the citizen chooses to treat the tree rather than cut it down, is that allowed under our ordinance or not?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But the success rate and the cost is not really beneficial, but that's
No.
up to them.
So Tom, are you telling me that they have to have the tree removed within 21 days regardless?
That's what the ordinance is.
Ordinance says.
We work with them. Your neighbor, Mr. O'Malley, across the street, he had a cobblestone driveway, and he had a couple huge elm trees behind there, and we talked about it, and we said, let the ground freeze and cut it down in the wintertime.
Well, again, it'd be nice to let them, whether it's a mailing or something. phone
No,
call,
we can,
hey,
I think our
We
our
work with the
notification
people,
includes
yeah.
that,
Okay.
that they can contact St. Croix Tree Service for $200. It used to be $165.
right.
And St. Croix Tree Service can be contacted to do this for a set fee of $200.
We'll have staff handle the communication initially with Randy, and also, if necessary, we'll send out something in our email, take care of it that way.
One quick question, how long is this contract?
This was just for 1 year,
Right.
so next year we can,
Look at it again.
Okay.
unless the price, I don't know the formality, but I guess if the price stays the same, can they just extend it?
That's
Still
what we
take
did.
approval, but they certainly
Yeah.
could bring
I
in
think
a-
that's what, St. Croix has done in the past.
That's
They
what we
just
did.
kinda-
We have
As
done
long
that.
as they didn't increase it, can they just extend it for another year?
They would still have to give us a notification on it. and just have
Okay.
to have council.
Our
long
last
as the price
contract
stays the
was
same.
dated 2003.
That's
And
not part of
continue.
this contract, and when the year is up, we'll discuss it again. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to 8, consider possible budget adjustment for fuel costs. Betty, you want to tell us about that, or? We did have a recommendation from finance to do that, but maybe the TV audience would like to know what's going on.
With our budgeting and our purchase order system, when we go over budget, we're kind of stuck, and we have to find funding sources to cover what we have. In some of the areas, especially like police and public works, we're starting to hit over budgets or close to budgets. And so when I looked at the year and analyzed it, it looks like we're going to be about $45,000 short for funding our fuel costs in the general fund. So I'm asking the council at this time to amend the budget. We've also kind of under budgeted interest earnings for the general fund. So what I'm suggesting is that we do increase the budget line item for interest earnings from 90,000, increase that 45,000 to cover the cost of the fuel costs. I don't believe that's going to be a problem for interest earnings for the general fund for this year to reach $140,000, so.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to Park Board, unfinished business update on, unfinished business update on projects. We did get a update from Chuck. Is he here? Yeah. Anything you want to tell us other than the report that was in our booklets?
No, unless there's any questions for me?
I do have a question. KinderCare just came in for approval of their project, and now it's been put on hold.
And I actually learned today that that project now is going to be starting up later this week.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, it's been what?
It'll be starting up later this week.
I'm extremely happy that we're moving forward on the 11th Street and the other project. Thank you. Update on health insurance options. We had a little meeting this morning, and several questions were brought up, and Devin is working feverishly with the insurance companies to get the answer to those questions, along with the state, right? And as soon as we get some answers to that, we'll come in with a suggested recommendation. That blue ribbon committee or insurance committee consists of O'Malley, Paul, myself, Devin, or no, not O'Malley, Al. Jeez, I'm sorry. The guy in the red shirt.
You look a lot alike, though.
Debonair, you mean? Dashing. Are those the words?
The hair is. So we'll bring you up to date on that as soon as we get some information. Okay? New business, a petition for annexation of 18.149 acres located in the southeast quadrant of Highway 35 and Hanley Road, High Ridge Drive in the town of Troy. Francine Hoffmeister, Melvin Fanning, and Beneman Farms LLC. Terry, you want to tell us, bring us an update on that?
My name is Terry Curtis.
Over here. You're on TV.
My name's Terry Perius, and I'm one of the partners of the Beneman Farm LLC. And we're currently developing the intersection of Hanley and Highway 35. And this parcel came on the market last spring, very, very early, and we put it under contract to attempt to bring it into annexation and complete that intersection that we've all worked on, quite a while.
Why don't you give them a little more descriptive
I brought a map.
location.
I was hoping there might be a bigger map here, but
Well, everybody kind of knows where that vet, oh, you got something?
just a couple color photos of the intersection.
There you go.
This is a little bigger. This is abbreviated.
Actually, they're looking,
This is the Hanley Road crossing right here. And you can just see the first roundabout on this end. This is the bigger parcel of 62.5 acres that is slated someday for retail. The residential runs to the north, and the parcel that we've actually asked for annexation of is an 18-acre parcel in the southeast quadrant of this intersection, Highway 35 and Hanley. It's bordered by city land on three sides.
That's our business park
This is business park
project
land
there.
here. This is a parcel that we own, 3¼ acres. And then this is the intersection, and then there's a 6.22 acre commercial site on this corner, which would be the northeast corner. This would become the southeast corner of this quadrant then. This intersection's had extensive development. Now there's a $4 million bridge. We contributed, the developers and the business park contributed $2 million to upgrade this bridge to a full interchange so that it can handle all the traffic that this intersection is going to generate. We respectfully request your consideration of this piece. It's bordered on Highway 35 on this side, and like I say, business park and commercial on the other corners.
We hope to have those lots in the business park probably ready by spring of next year. And,
Now, currently, there's water and sewer right to this point. There's water all the way across the boundary of this property. And we've worked out a kind of an easement agreement to extend the sewer across this gray area all the way down to the business park. So the business park will then have sewer and water. That would also serve this site potentially.
Do you have an idea at this time of what the nature of the commercial businesses would be?
I don't have a description that I can give you today for this particular parcel. I think as we progress through the next few weeks, a little more of the flavor of that whole parcel will be kind of being laid out on the table.
If this is recommended to be referred, if it is voted to be referred to the Plan Commission, do you have an idea of when you would be coming before the Plan Commission with an idea?
It's dependent on other people right now.
I'm just looking for a
Yeah.
ballpark. I
Yeah.
mean, you're obviously not gonna be ready for next week's.
No, but I think in the next 30 days, there'll be some major plans kind of laid out on the table. And
we have one more planning commission meeting this month, possibly two. And then we're back on a regular schedule of twice a month.
Because we are,
Yeah.
you were coming to us to give you guidance before you go to the Plan Commission. My guidance, speaking for myself, is that we're going to want to know what kind of businesses are going to be there, what demands are they going to make on our city services such as wastewater treatment. I'm sure you're going to have all that in line before you come before the Plan Commission.
This particular site would be approximately 21 acres, which would be big enough for a single larger store or, several smaller stores.
So you're thinking retail, not office space?
I'm thinking more, that it's going to be probably more retail oriented with that type of focus. Just because of the intersection really now is designed to take a lot of traffic and make use for that. I think that,
What's your pleasure?
Well, I'll move that we refer this to the Plan Commission.
So I'll second that.
Any discussion or comments? I'm sure that planning commission will take a look at it, also that entire corridor. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to the,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Terry. Cost estimates for left turn signal on northbound Second Street, turning left to Buckeye Street, information only. And we certainly want to wait until we look at our next year's budget.
Right.
Isn't that
We
right?
just requested this, or this was, I believe, referred back down to the Public Safety Committee. We requested the information, wanted to just get this to everybody to look at, so we know what that cost is, come budget time, if we have the money for it or not.
One of the other things that came up at Public Safety was, as we look at this development down there, we may want to hold off on this until we determine what that entire intersection and the new development is going to
And
be.
maybe by next year, we'll know.
Yeah.
It is nice that this is one issue that where the left turn lane is already there. We don't have to create a new lane.
Yeah. I had an idea
Okay,
on that, too.
let's go to C, review plans and consider advertising for bids for the Lakefront Park retaining wall project. And Chuck did give us some information here, and we're basically want to review those plans. Mr. O'Malley, myself, and Chuck did meet, put some qualifications on what we thought should be done with that Lakefront Park retaining wall, and I believe tomorrow is the Park Board meeting at 5:30, Paul?
Correct.
Where they are probably going to consider the walking trail and some of the amenities there, but I believe those dollars will have to come from donations. Betty, is that correct? And you'll be at that meeting tomorrow to guide them financially? Very good. Chuck? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just said, are you going to go through the?
Yeah, if it pleases the council, I'd like to come up and
Sure, please do.
These are the exact same drawings that you have in front of you currently. And what you have here in the white solid line is the existing seawall that's there. You can see there's another higher wall to the back of it on the north side there. And the existing trail that terminates there now. What the plan is, as proposed here, is it's a two-tiered wall. You have the lower tiered wall that'll parallel the existing seawall, and then you'll have an upper wall that'll undulate. Okay, and what the net effect of these two tiered walls will be is to bring it up to a 684 contour. Currently, the wall that's out there is 683. So just to give you some perspective, this will be about a foot higher on the second tier. With that, there's a bituminous trail that would go down below along that existing seawall being proposed, as well as the trail above the second tiered wall. And with the undulating second wall, what you do is you create areas of interest for potentially some stamped concrete with benches, something along those lines to increase the attractiveness and just to give it some character, shall we say. Looking in profile here, you can see that you have the existing seawall at an elevation of 679. You would have 12 feet of paved area and then your first wall. And what we're proposing to do is put a cap on that. That way people strolling along could, essentially you'd have one long bench along that lower wall. And then on the second tier there would be roughly 8 feet wide to 30 feet wide as it meanders through there, creating those areas of interest. And then you would have the upper wall at 684, and we would use those existing cap blocks that are out there for that upper wall. And the extra ones, we will have a few extra one of these types of capped walls, so we may incorporate some of them in the lower wall just to break it up and give it to some more character. With that being said, the turf restoration and the wall and the lighting, the total project cost for that is $180,000. If you add the bituminous trail and some of the features that go along with that, that's $260,000. And just for planning purposes and things, adding the stamped concrete and the benches and the trees and some of those other amenities would increase that cost, even more. We just had a concept where it would be an additional, that would bring it up to $380,000. But that's really just for planning purposes and just to let you know that there are other opportunities. And as with anything, the sky's the limit, and depending on how much you want to spend.
We don't like that term.
One of the questions that came up from the first wall design was as it comes around by the parking lot, the walls end but don't tie back to each other. How do you keep from flooding out the end of the wall?
Well, that's a good question. And what the goal of this project is to bring this entire area behind that second wall up to that 684.
I don't think we'll ever be able to not have that parking lot as a flooding area.
Yeah.
Well, I was more worried about the second tier, and if the water comes up this way, and it washing out back.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and with the additional pavement down below, you're going to reduce. The goal, from my perspective, is to return that park quicker and faster and to enhance the use of it. So you will, that areas that are most frequently flooded, we attempted to pave, but you still will get that, but it'll be a flatter surface and it'll come up and recede, and we'll be reducing the majority of the flooding.
Yeah, almost
for those other areas.
90% probably, huh?
Yeah.
So are you guaranteeing that first tier is not gonna wash out?
That block, there's an existing seawall standard that the manufacturer provided, it'll be built to that. You can see in this darker black line here is where the 10-year flooding,
You
so.
didn't answer my question, is that second tier, you're guaranteed that that's not gonna wash out? That kinda relates to Lee's question.
Well, how can he guarantee
The original concept plan for that to all be paved, so water would not seep into that.
Well, what's nice about this is gonna be 5 feet above
Yeah.
the existing wall, where the one that's down there now was 42 inches.
What was our,
You can see the level mark of that was pretty much where the normal water mark is.
what was our flood height this year?
Spring.
Oh, I don't recall what the flood height was. It's
Got me.
a good question. I don't know how
Well,
high was it above?
That wall about it now is 42 inches above the seawall,
Mhm.
so it was just pretty much right at that
Yeah,
mark.
right about that level, wasn't it?
So for instance, this year, we would have flooded first tier, second tier, up to the third tier.
Yes, it would have flooded into that area. But creating it, more uniform, flat slope, you don't get that wave action as
Well,
much.
yeah.
And so we are reducing, but we can't totally eliminate
I mean, I do like-
that ongoing maintenance. And to pave the entire thing, I think that's, there's some
Well,
aesthetic concerns.
Then
with
why
that
wouldn't we
as
go back to the one wall instead of two?
We can't do one wall that's more than 3 feet without very expensive
Yeah.
railing.
I know-
That's a state requirement.
But wasn't that also a problem with the weight distribution against the old seawall?
Exactly.
But if we pushed it back to that second, the weight distribution is not an issue?
Well, we have pushed it back to that 12 feet. So, conceivably, we could increase that front wall to, say, 30 inches, where right now it's about 18, 20 inches. And one of our concepts, we did look at that, we threw that idea around, but we like the idea of the smaller cap block for sitting and utilizing it that way.
And that one extra level wouldn't do any good.
That,
It's gonna flood above that 30
Right.
inches anyway, more than likely.
Yeah, so you still need the
So,
second tier.
You need the second tier, and this is really nice. I like how this
Yeah.
concept is. It kind of makes more use of that front.
Chuck, could you?
Well, and restitution of that second layer is gonna be a lot easier than what we're confronted with today, where we're doing that entire area.
Maybe Chuck, for just a second, you could go over what we discussed about Lee's question related to the south end of that wall. It does not come all the way back to the end of the parking lot, but isn't that because you're following the contours of the rise of the land so that it actually does cover as much as any other part of the wall, protected from water?
that's the
I can
goal,
see
is to
that
get
with
as
the-
much of that up to that 684.
Right.
Right, so this
So-
must be the 684 contour line here, huh?
Yeah.
We talked in that discussion also that if it was necessary, we could put in a small berm there that would retain the wall, like we've done on the
Yes.
north end.
Yes,
In the flood stages, we put a berm there.
but, go ahead.
Are you continuing that existing pathway to the boat dock?
The existing path, a couple items on that. We are proposing some steps. Right now, there's some steps along that existing seawall, approximately here. That's where the path would turn and go up to kind of higher ground.
You mean across
that-
Buckeye?
Yeah, because that's where the other path on that
Well-
south side of the park kind of goes in,
But it was part of the
Close.
street connecting
yeah.
the upper to the lower. That'll still be there.
Yeah, we'll connect into that parking lot. That's what you're
No,
asking.
no, down by the dock, where then it goes
Oh.
to the south end of the park and starts the other bituminous trail.
Are you talking about the boat launch?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it goes across there and it starts again. You want to keep a path that way, don't you?
Well, no, it's gonna curve up.
Well, they're gonna walk.
Oh, I see what you're saying. When you come out of
I see what
Lakefront
you're
Park,
saying,
you
yeah.
end up right along the river, and where do you pick the path up after you pass through the parking lot?
You know,
Well, won't that be part of the 12 feet of
So
bituminous between the two tiers?
Yeah, so they'd pick up the walkway somewhere
You
in
could
here
walk right across the,
as they walk.
Walk
around
right
the parking lot.
in the
You're just
street,
saying that
actually.
you
Well,
just
and that's what it does. It
Yeah.
goes up to the boat launch and then it starts, what I'm saying, just kind of keeping the trail consistent. And then it meets up on the other trail on the south end of the park.
So that there's a bituminous path
Yes.
that it terminates
It
right here.
connects that.
And that the previous proposed path was planned to connect into the back part of the parking lot. And that's kind of the concept we went for with this plan. Not to say that we couldn't bring a path around and down and tie into that. We could certainly do that, but it's just how we want to handle it at this point.
But what you're showing here is you're taking out the path from that, I guess,
That's correct. That's what we're showing, but it's not to say we can't change that.
yeah, I'm not in favor of taking it out because they're gonna walk there anyways. The flow of the park was designed for that
They're gonna follow the water.
eventually.
So, is there a consensus then? What we'd like to do is keep that path this
Yeah.
way? And
I
then
think-
maybe not even include this upper path? Do you think that's necessary or needed?
The upper path is nice because it'll pull down from whatever this development is down through the park.
I'd do both.
Yeah. Have a Y intersection down here by the, next to the water.
Yeah.
So you can do a waterfront walk, you bet.
And like you say, the other path will lead right into what we hope will be a very nice center at the River Center lot, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we reviewed the plans. We want to consider advertising for bids, so we would need a motion on that.
Well, should we decide on which option? I think we're looking at B, but I think we need to make a decision on that. I'll make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
That we choose alternative B, which includes not only the wall, but the lighting and the bituminous paths along the trail altered the way we have just discussed, so there is a Y intersection. So at the very end, the last few feet, there's technically two trails. Are you following me on that, Chuck?
Right through
Yeah,
here.
right there, yeah. And that is going to be, now this is an estimated cost, but it includes engineering of $260,000.
I'll second.
Oh, okay, discussion. The lighting and that sort of thing, according to Betty, has to come from donations at the park. Because we don't have enough money without that, do we, Betty?
I haven't really defined it at this point because we have some leftover funds from the law. I guess I could probably give you about 5 minutes, I guess I can approximate how
Well,
much money I have.
I think I would make your motion contingent upon finding
He
the
says.
Can we, I'm sorry.
additional funds so that we don't lock ourselves into something we can't,
Perform on.
okay?
I will alter the motion, if it's okay with the seconder, that this is contingent upon finding the appropriate funds per Betty Caruso's comments,
For the lighting and the auxiliary,
for the path and the lighting.
What are, B says lighting, am I reading something wrong?
Yes, all three estimates do include lighting. I did want to
yeah,
mention
but you
that.
gotta find the money.
No, the alternative A is only the wall, no lighting.
It says include lighting for future.
No, it does, it includes the lighting and the path.
I say includes the,
The
okay.
bituminous.
Right above it says wall only, so a little
Well, that's why I
confusing.
brought it up.
Yeah.
So, okay, so option B just includes the paths.
It includes the wall, the lighting, and the bituminous paths.
Providing we can find money for the lighting and the bituminous path.
Right.
Yeah.
Would those be bid outs kind of as
Separate?
line options or line items?
We could certainly alternate bid some of these items
Yeah.
if that's the route you
Let's
want
do
to
that.
take.
Who's the second?
Well, I think the lighting really needs to stay in there,
Yeah,
but the pathway, I would suggest that we could do that as an alternate.
I agree.
Well,
So we were still talking option B,
Mm-hmm.
but now maybe taking out the pathway. That's what you're saying, Chuck?
Well, that's alternate A,
Yeah.
but bidding the path as an alternate.
I
Right.
agree what you're saying, but if you bid it separately, we don't have the money, you could still put the wiring in, but not necessarily the lights. So you want to open that up to an option so that we don't get cornered and painting ourselves into a corner.
So if I hear you correctly, Mayor, you want the bids to be for wall only, wall plus path, and lighting
Or path and lighting separate.
separately, right?
Well, I agree
I don't-
with what you said the first time though, was the wall with the lighting.
Okay,
and the
that's fine.
wiring.
All right.
For sure, the wiring, when you're doing all the moving of the dirt, you should have that all at the same time.
Well, that's the time to trench everything in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
why I-
you should for sure the wall and at least the wire pole.
If we don't have any money, you can add the lighting later.
That's exactly what you said the first
Okay.
time. yeah.
Whatever I said the first time. I know I'm always right.
I'm amending my motion according to all that stuff you just said.
And you just confirmed that. Who's the seconder here? Okay. Is that okay with you, Paul?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody understand? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And as far as one more comment in regards to schedule, I do have a schedule, but this is a somewhat dependent on permitting and working with the DNR on that schedule. So that could delay things, but we will plow forward and quickly and efficiently and do whatever we can to get those permits done.
Well, can't you put the bids out regardless of what the DNR is gonna say?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good.
I think we should point out to anyone tuned in tonight that Chuck's reference to the schedule does include this entire project being done before the ground freezes.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be carried
Gotta
over
keep
into next
going.
year.
I would suggest, Paul, that you collect these for your park board meeting tomorrow evening, with it, so you have enough to be able to communicate to them what the proposal is. Is that all
I
right?
already wrote them.
I'll leave the larger ones.
Good. Is that all right?
Got one, Nancy.
I got one.
Here. Okay. We don't have a closed session. Communications recommendations of the mayor. I'd like to confirm the appointment of Richard Herberg, 90 Quail Circle, to fulfill the remainder of Don Gilbert's term on the park board through April of 2008, and the reappointment of Sally New, 111 South 17th Street, to another 5-year term on the Housing Authority through July of 2012. Mr. Richard Herberg lives in Stone Pine, or Red Cedar Canyon, 90 Quail Circle, Education, University of Minnesota, Bachelor of Science in Forest Management and Resources. Work experience is Bachman's Incorporated, Minneapolis, 1958 to 2005. He was the Chief Operations Officer from 1988 to 2005. Retail operations of 22 to 60 retail stores and marketing, advertising, and public relations with 1,600 employees. Merchandising and distribution background, operating budget, planning control of $75 million. His interests and organizations are Rotary Club for 17 years, Bloomington Board of Education, church leadership on councils, personnel, and call committees, Boy Scouts of America for 25 years, volunteer work, senior care, Martin Luther Manor, Hudson Hospital, 3 years, Courage Center in Stillwater for 2 years. Interests are family, lake, home, gardening, fishing, and traveling. Married 39 years, 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, and I would recommend Richard Herberg for that appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion or comments? I think it'd be a real addition to our park board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, and the reappointment of Sally New, 111 South 17th Street, to another 5-year term on the Housing Authority through July of 2012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. What else we got left here, Madam Clerk? Communications recommendation for future agendas. Any alderperson?
Do have one comment about something that was in our packet, and this is the quarterly report at your
Oh,
library.
yes.
If you would please, council members, just take a second to reread it if you've already read it, but please note that in the month of April, 1 month alone, this library passed through over 18,000 items. That's about 800 per day, every day, day in and day out. And they do that in the library space that's 1/3 of the normal size for what we would do for that volume of business. We do it with half of the staffing that a regular library would have for that volume of business. And we do it at about 60-some% of the cost of the average library in the state of Wisconsin. Our library is extremely high-performing, but these figures tell you that it's also straining at the seams. Please keep this in mind, that someday in the future, we will be talking about a new library, and this is why.
Isn't the Friends of the Library coming out with some recommendation on timetables for considering the new library?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I was at the concert in the park on Thursday night.
Same here.
So Jazz Orchestra, beautiful night. The park looks great. It's just a really nice atmosphere down there, and having the concession stand, and it was just a beautiful night. A lot of people enjoyed it, but there's room for more people to come down. I just want to plug the series every Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Come on down and enjoy a nice free concert at Lakeland Park.
So
Nice
probably
spring-
the largest audience we had all season.
Excuse me, I'd like to springboard off what Paul just said, that come down a little early and go on the river walk out the dike, what we used to call the Dike Road. The park board has now completed its installation of benches and the new very attractive waste receptacles. It's hard to describe. Usually you don't describe waste receptacles as attractive. But you know, they look so much better than what we had before, and they're powder coated, so they're hard. The finish will withstand the elements. They look great.
Plus the new lights.
and the new lights, which, by the way, are the same exact design as they have on the much-lauded River Road in St. Paul.
Right,
It's very, very nice.
beautiful.
And also piggybacking on that is just kudos to the police department for a great job that they've been doing in enforcing our ordinances down on the Dyke Road. It's been a lot of positive comments.
Knock on wood, we haven't any problems.
Well, I'm down there almost every morning, and I run into JJ. JJ Barnes is our lead on parks, and he and I talk over the situation an awful lot. It is so nice to see the beach at the end of the Riverwalk is clean.
Right.
Nobody's trying to sleep something off there. There are no boats there. It looks like a park. It's inviting like a park, and I agree with you. With the more than 80 citations they passed out in the first month of the summer, I think the message is getting through that the old rules don't apply anymore, and there's a new sheriff in town.
Correct.
Well, I'm gonna hitchhike too. Bathrooms are open and clean. And they're cleaned by
Bathhouse,
Pilates personnel.
Yeah.
And I think the addition of Pilates down there has been just a tremendous addition to our park system.
Heard a lot of good
And they'll
comments.
soon have their little cart going around selling off of that. Any other hitchhiking?
How long can we go?
My thumbs are sore.
City attorney. City administrator.
Betty and I are meeting with the department heads Thursday to hand out their zero increase budgets for next year. Our intent is telling them that whatever they had last year, that'll be the maximum they'll get this year, and if they want something in one area, they're gonna have to, within their budget, and they still may have cuts, but we're meeting them with them Thursday to have them get going on that, so.
I'll be in that meeting
Yep.
also. Anything else?
I do have, just a reminder that National Night Out is on August 7th, tomorrow night.
Okay,
So turn those porch lights on at least.
leave the light burn.
Leave the light on, yeah.
Need a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Thanks for fabulous response and all 15 minutes.